Throughout the history of Old School RuneScape, the constant introduction of new weapons, armor, and other items have constantly diversified our PvM and PvP market and meta. In this video, we will be talking about some of Gielinnor's once must-have items that have over time depreciated in use and value. And we'll be talking about what can be done to revitalize these now forgotten relics of time that seemingly have been pushed out of Old School RuneScape altogether. Welcome to my video. I'm Tomb Goblin, and it's time to talk about some of Old School RuneScape's forgotten items. The Toxic Blowpipe. The Blowpipe upon release bolstered one of the fastest range attack and XP rates imaginable. Before the unfortunate nerf to the Toxic Blowpipe on the 30th of June 2021, the Blowpipe could commonly be found in the hands of mid to high tier players alike. The nerf received to the Blowpipe would reduce the weapon's accuracy bonus from plus 60 to plus 30, and its range damage bonus from plus 40 to plus 20, which would affect the performance of the weapon just enough to kick it to the curb, being slowly replaced and outvalued by other ranged weapons such as the newer Bow of Saeldor, the Zerite crossbow, and the Venator bow. Perhaps the release of more items that could work in conjunction and synergize with the Toxic Blowpipe, such as when pairing the Blowpipe with the Serpentine helmet and giving you a guaranteed poison to all applicable targets. The Inquisitor's Armor set and Mace. Inquisitor's Armor bolsters a similar strength value as Bando's Armor, and the defensive qualities comparable to that of only Adamant make. And the Inquisitor's Mace's stats can be compared roughly to that of the Blade of Saeldor or the Kodai Rapier. Due to the baby soft defense Inquisitor's Armor offers, it's best bought to encounters where damage can be easily mitigated with overhead prayers. Including these powerful items on the list is and was quite difficult, as on paper it sounds like when this gear is set to purpose, it should wreak havoc and annihilation. But the only homes this notorious armor and weapon set currently have are the Theater of Blood and the Nightmare or Fasani's Nightmare. So what can be done to expend the use of this now reclusive armor set and mace? Though I could only imagine that the majority of my demographic would not really consider the roughly 490 million gold to purchase these items as breaking the bank, this high strength, low defense requiring gear should be made more readily available for players who are unable to produce coin enough to purchase their own set. The loot table at the Nightmare is definitely weak enough. Maybe instead of buffing the Nightmare's drop rates and table, upon killing the Nightmare, points could be awarded in random or set increments to players who could use them over time to outright purchase Inquisitor's armor pieces. The Blade of Saeldor. Once again competing with the Kodai Rapier and Inquisitor's Mace for the most powerful one-handed melee weapon in Old School, the Elvish make Blade of Saeldor is rarely seen around Gielinnor today. In most situations, the Blade of Saeldor can be found in the clutches of an Iron Man. Sourcing the crystal weapon seed from the gauntlet or the corrupted gauntlet, players will usually be more apt to have the crystal sung into the godly accurate Bow of Saeldor, whose qualities will allow for players to more often than not kill monsters that are not even weak to range in the first place, easily allowing it to outvalue the Elvish Blade of Saeldor. The Osmumten's Fang could be considered the most powerful defense and will-imposing weapon currently in the game, and it's readily available at a fraction of the cost. With no intention or future plans to re-look at this weapon, it will forever live in the shadow of the Osmumten's Fang. I believe something that could be done to help breathe a fresh breath of life into the blade would be to give players the option to change back and forth freely between the Blade of Saeldor and the Bow of Saeldor without reverting it back to its enhanced crystal weapon seed form, and maybe even consider giving the Blade of Saeldor a spicy new special attack. The Kodai Wand. Translated from the Japanese language, Kodai, meaning ancient, perfectly describes the current state of the wand. An old ancient piece of shit that's been collecting dust on the shelf. The Kodai Wand, known as Old School's most powerful wand, will give players an unlimited supply of water runes and has a 15% chance of negating rune cost when casting an offensive spell, and it provides a 15% magic damage bonus. Notorious for its use in the Inferno, the introduction of the Tombs of a Mascot raid and the threat of Relentless rendered the Kodai Wand useless in your encounter with Zuck. Being now replaced with the Eldritch Nightmare Staff, the Kodai Wand would now be left without a proper home. The only thing that I could think of to put this wand once again back on the radar would be to offer a diversity of free runes offered by the Kodai Wand, allowing the players to benefit from a single unlimited basic elemental rune supply instead of just water runes. The Scythe of Vitur. As mentioned before in my previous video talking about the absolute dead current state of the infamous Scythe of Vitur, the scythe plain and simple has fallen short to the deadly as fuck Osmumten's Fang. Considering that the scythe and blood runes currently bolster an all-time low market price, the lack of applications for this weapon render it overall not worth the investment, partially due to the hourly usage cost of around 940,000 gold an hour. Perhaps to get the scythe back up and running in all fours, by reducing the hourly usage cost of the vampiric weapon in half, it would only then be justifiable to carry into your PvM encounter, opening up a little more room for players to actually make a little bit of profit. The Saradomin Sword. There once was a point in time when the Sara Sword was your best in-slot strength training weapon of choice. This former shell of a weapon turned paperweight is going to potentially have to undergo a dramatic transformation to once again captivate the eye and interest of Old School Runescapes' optimistic player base. Saradomin's tier was added to Old School in attempts to rework the weapon into the game. By attaching Saradomin's tier to the Sara Sword, you will then create Saradomin's Blessed Sword, which represents an additional plus 18 to your strength and an additional plus 6, higher than the normal variant offers, and then the weapon will offer you an alternative special attack. After 10,000 attacks with the Saradomin Blessed Sword, or around 400 minutes of continuous use, the sword will crumble to dust, leaving you with only Saradomin's tier. Though the Sara Sword currently only costs around 180,000 gold to replace, perhaps making the upgraded variant a one-time, non-degradable weapon that should now be protected on death. And while we're at it, I don't think it would hurt to reduce the special attack cost from 65 to 50% to really seal the deal, because in my book, with the exception of a very few weapons, 50% special attack energy seems fair, especially overlooking its current disposition in the meta. The Justiciar Armour set. Obtained as a reward from the Theater of Blood, who would have expected that this thick-ass tanky armor set would see such little and niche use? For the minuscule price of around 35 million gold current day, when set to purpose, the Justiciar Armour set, accommodated with other defensive items such as the Din's Bulwark, the Guardian Boots, and the Elysian Shield, will literally turn you into an impenetrable fortress. But just how far does being thick really go in a world where optimally high damage per second and best in slot strength gear reign supreme? Not that far, unfortunately. I believe something that could be done to help this prestigious armor set gain its popularity back would be to remove it from the Theater of Blood drop table altogether. In my book, a player should consider themselves lucky to find a team that is willing to take and teach them the raid in the first place. Maybe by redistributing the Justiciar Armour set pieces amidst all of the pre-existing God Wars dungeon bosses could help re-incentivize players to pay the God Wars dungeon a long overdue visit. And finally, the Seers Ring. There isn't really too much to say about this depressing ass ring, other than the fact that it's the only ring in the Fremennik trio that does not provide any damage bonus for its combat style, making the Seers Ring easily replaceable with other rings such as the Lightbearer Ring or the Ring of Suffering. With the release of Desert Treasure 2 only a few months away, along with a new set of best in slot rings, it is surely a time to be alive. Promising to be tasty, hot, and fresh out of the box, who knows how this new resurgence of power will settle into Old School. But until that time comes, it's safe to say that the ring can stay right on the floor of the Dagannoth King's lair. If you enjoyed the video half as much as I enjoy having my nuggets rubbed, please consider leaving a like, comment, and subscribe. And until we meet again, Monkey Dinks, Tomb Goblin out.